Hello everyone and welcome to the weird, scary and horrible parts of humanity. While The Price is Right hasn't aired in Australia since 2012, it is still one of Australia's most well-known game shows, with many looking back fondly on the new Price is Right, broadcast on Channel 7 from 1981 to 1985 by Ian Turpie, as well as the Channel 9 90s version, which was hosted by Larry Emder from 1993 to 1998 and 2003 to 2005, with the show even featuring in the Australian cult classic film The Castle in 1997. Originally broadcast in Australia in 1957, in 1973 the relatively new O10 network, now Channel 10, broadcast The Price is Right. It was hosted by Gary Meadows and announced by Keith Livingstone. It began airing on the 5th of February 1973 as an hour-long daytime TV show, just 5 months after it returned on the 4th of September 1972 on CBS in the United States of America as The New Price is Right. The show was filmed in Melbourne, Victoria. The daytime version was so successful that a primetime version came to pass on the 30th of April 1973, broadcast at 7 p.m, Monday to Friday. Initially it only aired in Melbourne before going across the country, with both daytime and primetime editions airing nationally. However, at the end of June 1974, the primetime version ended to make way for a new current affairs show, 24 Hours, which was hosted by newsreader John Bailey. The daytime version ended in September 1974. One of the models on the 1970s version was Jacqueline Mertens, who went by Jackie. We're going to see a bit of footage from 1973 when she was a model on the show, modelling a secretarial unit.
Showcase. It's a secretarial unit. A distinctive furniture item for your home, den or office. The desk and extension are constructed from beautiful black beam timber, and so you can work in comfort. There's an accompanying chair, especially designed with casters and swivel and height adjustment. A must for a busybody. They could be yours if the price is right. They're made and designed by Ron Barassi Office Equipment.
Jacqueline was born in 1949 as Jacqueline Mertens, and her full name was actually Wilhelmina Jacoba Maria Mertens, but she went by Jacqueline. She was described by those who knew her as funny and intelligent. She was born in the Netherlands, but as a 3-year-old migrated to Australia with her parents, growing up in the Dandenong village of Belgrave in Victoria, where her mum and dad ran the Highwood Inn. The inn would remain open for 30 years. After Jacqueline's brief TV career, she went to Hong Kong, where she would marry. When that relationship failed, she went to London in the United Kingdom to work in fashion and modelling. Prior to leaving for Hong Kong, she had met Slavic Ramchen in a restaurant in Melbourne, and they had gone out once. There was no secret of Jacqueline's wish to marry for money, and she would tell her friends, "I'll marry for money. Love will come later." Coming back to Melbourne from London, dejected, she reunited with Ramchen. The two went out to dinner and began dating, and after just 1 month they were living together. In June 1980 they married at the registry office. Ramchen was a civil engineer with his own business and a property developer with properties across Victoria. Ramchen was born in 1941. He was known as Vic. He was a hard drinker, a hard worker and a divorcee. He was also a loner, according to Victorian police, and only really had one friend who was of Russian descent. He was also an avid bird watcher. Ramchen was highly successful financially, and in 1989 purchased the turn-of-the-century mansion Fairbarn on the corner of Domain and Punt Road in South Yarra in Melbourne. They paid $3 million for the house. They also owned a 95-hectare farm in Ashburn, which Ramchen bought in 1979. At the time, the property was worth $1.5 million, and today would be worth approximately $6.5 million. But the marriage was pretty rocky to begin with. In 1981, Ramchen held a barbecue at his home and said that education was the cornerstone of success. Jacqueline then said, whatever they could get with education and money, she could get with this, and pointed between her legs. Ramchen was shocked and angered and stormed out. As a result, Jacqueline moved back into the inn with her parents before they patched things up. Their first child was born in 1982, a son. Their second child, a daughter, was born in 1987, and finally they had a third daughter born in 1988. She was described by police as a doting mother. Ramchen would later admit that he didn't want children, but Jacqueline wanted them, and she was still young. Not working, Jacqueline would become reliant on Ramchen, but missed her financial independence. Personality-wise, she tried to maintain something of an independence. She developed a strong love for interior decorating as an artistic person and bought and sold artifacts. Her favourite song was Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood, performed by Nina Simone. Indeed, her love for interior decorating extended to her mansion, and she would have up to 50 tradies working on the mansion and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars doing it up. But Ramchen would humiliate and undermine his wife in public and brainwashed the children, according to police, saying that she was a whore. This thought was only augmented when Jacqueline got a boob job, with Ramchen angered that she would gain unwarranted attention, stating, "Who are you going to show your bloody boobs to?" She expressed this fear to mothers at her youngest child's preschool. Missing her financial independence, she started undertaking a milliner's course at Prahan, TAFE, and developed a few friends there, as well as a close relationship with the teacher. She would tell her teacher and her friends that her husband had a private detective following her. While she desperately wanted to leave her husband and told friends that her husband might kill her, Jacqueline did not want to leave Ramchen because he could get the kids. They were in all senses separated and living in different bedrooms, and when seen in public they yelled in the street. Ramchen also believed that his wife was having affairs, including with a barrister, with death threats allegedly sent to the barrister. At a school function, Ramchen had introduced himself, saying, "How do you do? I'm Vic Ramchen, and my wife is a harlot." Jacqueline rebutted this to the individual at the school function, saying that Ramchen wanted sucks 8 times a day. Ramchen would later tell Victorian police that his marriage would make a bloody good soapy. The marriage slowly disintegrated into violence, with Jacqueline attacked by Ramchen, her hair being ripped out, and police attending on a number of occasions to their home. She even turned to a nun for help, Sister Kennan, with Ramchen once trying to run her over on the driveway before Sister Kennan arrived and intervened. However, neighbours would come to Ramchen's side. It was alleged that it was Jacqueline who had allegedly tried to run him over in her BMW, with Ramchen jumping out of the way just before Jacqueline got to him. In response, Jacqueline said that he was a coward and he didn't even stand there and wouldn't let her kill him. Police indeed debated whether, if Ramchen had not moved, Jacqueline would have indeed tried to kill him. Jacqueline's father speculated that the violence between the pair had been ongoing since 1982, despite Jacqueline, whenever her father brought up any signs of violence, that she had walked into a door. Indeed, Ramchen always avoided targeting Jacqueline's face in his violent outbursts in order to avoid any suspicion that he was a wife beater. Her parents tried to get Jacqueline to leave Ramchen, but she refused. Police would note she was there for the children, despite Ramchen now having turned her 10-year-old son against her. In February 1992, Ramchen received a letter from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia demanding the return of a $3.1 million loan. On the 20th of March 1992, police were called for a domestic dispute. Jacqueline claimed that she was filing for divorce and had moved to the back of the house. On the 10th of April 1992, she drove her BMW sedan to Christchurch Grammar School to drop off her 3 kids. A teacher watched her sign her children in. She was designated to pick them up at 2:50 p.m. However, she was never seen again, and it was Ramchen who would pick the children up 10 minutes earlier than planned at 2:40 p.m. Ramchen then left the kids with his mother in South Melbourne and then headed with a friend to the farm. He then took the children out for dinner at a Chinese restaurant. It was alleged that some of Jacqueline's clothes were missing and that she had withdrawn $1,500 from her account on the 9th of April 1992, leading Ramchen to believe that she had run away. This was despite Jacqueline having access to accounts equating to $350,000 if she wanted to make a run. However, the concept that she abandoned her children was widely reputed, with a family friend noting to The Age, "Leave her children? Never," and Lucy Mertens, her sister-in-law, telling the Sunday Age that she would not leave her mother, stating, "She would not hurt her mother like that. I can't possibly see her leaving and hurting everybody like that. She wouldn't leave her children." Indeed, her disappearance surprised many, and she had made plans after the 10th of April. Her mother's birthday was coming up on the 12th of April, and her mother spoke to Jacqueline on the 5th of April, with plans to go to Phillip Island with her children and her mother on the 20th of April. She would usually also remember important upcoming events amongst her family, like anniversaries, birthdays, and special events, but her mother didn't hear from her on her birthday on the 12th of April. On the 20th of April, her mother drove up to Phillip Island to try to find Jacqueline, but saw that her daughter had not arrived. Indeed, Jacqueline's disappearance wasn't even reported, and when Detective Sergeant Charlie Bezina of the Homicide Squad later asked Slavic Ramchen why he didn't tell police that his wife was missing, Ramchen said that he thought Jacqueline had left him. On the 11th or 12th of May, Jacqueline's mother went to the house to find out what had happened to her. Ramchen told her that his wife had left him and he hadn't contacted the police as a result. In 1992, The Age reported that her mother contacted the Prahan Community Policing Squad, who in turn called the South Melbourne CIB, before passing the case on to the Homicide Squad of Victoria. This was disputed by The Age in 2023, who would report that it was Sister Kennan who went to the police. Police found her BMW sedan at her family mansion in the driveway, but Jacqueline was nowhere to be seen. Victorian police would later speculate that Ramchen had chosen the time period to get rid of his wife because of school holidays lasting 2 weeks over Easter between term 1 and term 2 of school time, and nobody would notice that she was missing. Indeed, it was 38 days between when Jacqueline was last seen and when her disappearance was reported to the police. On the 18th of May 1992, police had to scale the 2-metre fence at the family home, which was padlocked, to interview Ramchen. Police found her BMW sedan at her family mansion in the driveway, but Jacqueline was nowhere to be seen. They searched the family home as well as their farm in Ashburn on motorbikes and horseback, including 9 dams, which were all drained. However, nothing was found. Police even searched under the concrete of a family home and in a cellar in the home and in the garden, but there was no evidence that she was killed in the home. The search at the farm lasted over a week, and the forest behind the farm was also searched, but nothing could be determined. There were 2 burglaries at the farm shortly after police had searched it, which took place from a strange vantage point at the front of the farm, which would make it easier for burglars to be detected. Indeed, what didn't make sense, despite many valuables in the property, most of these were ignored, and only a small colour television, a large rug, and 3 smaller rugs were stolen in the 2 burglaries. So what exactly happened to Jacqueline? Well, nobody knows. Police checked with Interpol, and there was no record of her having fled the country, having paid any social security, no record of her having used her Medicare card to access a doctor, and no evidence of her contacting her family or her mother, to whom she was very close. Initially, Victorian police seemed to dismiss the thought that she was murdered by her husband, and that her murder was to save Slavic Ramchen from an expensive divorce, with Sergeant Bezina insisting to The Age in 1992 that the family had no more problems than any other family. Sergeant Bezina would also tell The Age in 1992 that they were not aware of her having any other lovers, despite the affair with the barrister later coming to pass. It was believed that if Ramchen had divorced Jacqueline, this would have cost him between $2 and $3 million, in addition to legal costs, which would have been approximately $300,000. With the $3.1 million loan to be repaid to the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, this would have meant selling almost everything he owned. Ramchen was questioned by police in 1992, and it was found that he hadn't stopped Jacqueline's credit cards, which they had under a joint account. Despite caring so dearly about his money, Ramchen told police that he didn't care if Jacqueline used the cards or not because he thought she had run away from him. However, by 2002, 10 years after her murder, police thought that they had sufficient evidence to charge Ramchen with the murder of Jacqueline, and in March 2002, Slavic Ramchen was arrested and charged with Jacqueline's murder. He was released on bail the same day by the Supreme Court in order to look after his kids, with his mother too old to look after them and his sister unable to take care of them. This was unprecedented at the time in Victorian courts. During his hearing, Ramchen was represented by Robert Richter. However, police would admit that the evidence that they had against him was circumstantial at best, with no body and no confession. The trial went before Magistrate Kim Parkinson during a committal hearing of 8 days, but the magistrate withdrew the case on the 14th of March due to a lack of evidence to show that Jacqueline was dead. As a result, Ramchen was released. However, in August 2002, the coroner Philip Byron ruled that Jacqueline had most likely been murdered. However, by this stage, Ramchen had developed terminal cancer, and he was dying. Police were hoping for a deathbed confession, and even passed a letter to him shortly before he died, asking if they could tell in an anonymous letter where Jacqueline's body was. However, this would never come to pass, and Ramchen would go on to die of cancer on the 23rd of October 2002. Despite the tragedy that this would onset onto Jacqueline's children, they all did phenomenally well academically, with the first two getting 99.95 in their VCE, the highest result you can get in the VCE, which is the final exam for Victorian high school education, and the third getting 99%. Jacqueline's body has never been found, and indeed police are hoping that when a body is found they will be able to tell that it is Jacqueline's based on her breast implants, which will have serial numbers which they will be able to correlate to Jacqueline. If you have any information on her disappearance, please contact Crime Stoppers Victoria on 1800 333 000. Thank you for watching. Please do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of when new videos come out. Also, why not hit that like button and leave a nice comment? It helps more than you know, and your support is truly appreciated. Until next time, stay awesome, stay classy, be kind to everyone you meet, have an amazing day, and remember the truth is always more interesting than fiction.